A lonely mechanic stands in the darkest corner of a dying space station as a raging ion storm tears through metal and light. His shop trembles on the edge of collapse when a desperate knock echoes at his door. Outside, two strangers stand cloaked in crackling static, their eyes glowing with fear and secrets too heavy for the night to hold. He has 7 cycles left before eviction. One choice before him now: open the door or turn away. If you are new to the channel, then please subscribe to the channel and like the video and tell us where are you watching from. Now, let's jump into the story. The alarm from Horizon Ring's weather mast cut through the maintenance level like a blade drawn across wire. Jonas Hale paused mid-step, the eviction notice trembling between his oil-stained fingers, its red lettering blinking, 7 cycles left. Outside, the ion surge from the Umbra Veil pressed against the station hall, making ribs of metal sing. The clock on his wall burned 2100. Whoever stood at his door in this hour, with the storm snarling, could only be trouble. The bay lights flickered as a pressure wave rolled through the rafters. Jonas looked to the security monitor. Static crawled like silver frost across the screen, and behind it, 2 slim figures stood shoulder to shoulder, faces turned down, cloaks clinging to them in the crackling air. Not quite human, he thought, but not a threat either. He saw the way one braced the other, a small act of care that reached past the interference and into his chest. In this deck, late visitors meant smugglers with broken thrusters or debt muscle, sniffing for late fees. Jonas had learned to be cautious after the partnership collapse that took his firm, his home, and almost his hope. But as the storm rumbled, another thought rose, gentle and persistent. If his kids, Ivy and Corin, were lost somewhere and needed help, he'd want someone to open a door. He kept the locks engaged and tapped the intercom. "What do you need?" The taller lifted her head. Her pupils were long and narrow, catching the emergency glow like crystal. Faint patterned scales lay along her cheekbones, shifting colors with the flicker, and 2 slender horns swept back in elegant curves. "Please," she said, and her voice carried a soft harmonic, like 2 notes played together. "We only need a comm link. Our pod died 3 sectors back. The public relays are down with the storm." The second spoke through chattering breaths. "We tried 7 doors. No one would answer." Jonas felt the old instinct to bolt the door and pretend he hadn't heard. The notice on his bench whispered reminders. Stay small, stay quiet, survive. But he looked again. They were young, maybe early 20s, with matching features that marked them as sisters. The first scales shimmered a deep ocean hue. The others glowed green like glass warmed by sun. They were soaked by charged air, shivering despite inner strength. Kindness tugged in him like gravity. He opened the voice channel. "The locks stay on until I'm sure we're safe. Show your hands. Step closer to the lens." They did as asked, calm and steady, palms open, hands with fine talon tips, careful and non-threatening. The storm sparked around them, painting the frame in white veins. "All right," he said. "Get in and keep your cloaks close. The surge can bite." He keyed the maglocks. The doors slid, and the storm rushed in with invisible teeth, lifting hair and making the tools on the pegboard buzz. The 2 crossed the threshold, and the moment the door sealed, the bay dropped to a quiet hum. Jonas handed them thermal wraps from a dented locker, trying not to notice the scuffs on every surface, the patched vents, the tired recycler wheezing in the corner. "I'm Jonas," he said. "This place isn't much, but it's dry." The ocean-hued sister clasped the blanket with graceful thanks. "I'm Maren." She gestured to the other. "And this is Talith. We're grateful to be anywhere that isn't screaming." Talith's smile was small and brave. "Your kindness is a safe harbor." Their clothes, although travel-worn, told another story. Finely woven tunics that draped like water, boots fitted to their digit-grade steps, delicate jewelry with the quiet glow of embedded processors. They did not belong to the lower decks. Jonas filed the detail away without judgment. Everyone had reasons. Everyone hid some part of a life. He pointed them to the comm array, a stubborn old unit but reliable. Miren's fingers danced over the holographic keys. The board flashed error codes in steady refusal. Talith tried an alternate route, voice low as she attempted to bounce a signal through a maintenance satellite. The storm said no again. Grids choked, Jonas said. When the Umbra Veil rolls this close, the whole spine groans. Miren's wings, small, held tight under her cloak, drooped. We can pay for our use of space. Jonas shook his head. Not tonight. What you need is rest. The surge will fade by morning. I've got 2 cots in the back while I'm on long shifts. They're clean. The coffee isn't good, but it's warm. Talith's eyes glistened. Relief and embarrassment tangled together. We don't want to trouble you. This isn't trouble, Jonas said. This is a choice. Besides, the storm has a temper. I don't send guests into a bad mood with teeth. As he set out blankets and heated water, the bay felt less empty. They spoke softly, like travelers around a small lamp. Miren asked about his work. He told her he used to build drives meant to cross the dark between suns, and these days he kept limping ships alive. Talith asked about life above the ring. He told her about Ivy's laugh, Corin's questions, and the ache of distance that never quite slept. They listened, not as strangers ticking boxes, but as people who understood that loss leaves a draft in every room. Outside, the surge howled once, then softened. Inside, Jonas watched 2 lives ease their shaking. He did not know who they were. He only knew that opening a door had made the station feel, for one thin, bright moment, like a home. He dimmed the lights. Rest, he said. We'll try the grid at first shift. Their thanks followed him like a blessing. Jonas lay on the faded couch under a tarp, eyes on the ceiling's hairline cracks, listening to the weather quiet and the soft breath of guests who by chance and storm had found his door. First shift came with the scent of metal warmed back to life. Jonas woke to find Mirine and Talith already up, speaking in low musical syllables that flowed like rain on glass. When they saw him, they rose, grateful and a little shy, as if unsure whether this quiet kindness could hold another hour. He brewed the station's idea of coffee, which tasted a little like burned bread, but carried courage in its steam. He split a ration bar 3 ways and added a pinch of dried fruit he had been saving for a better day. This morning, he decided, counted. They wrapped hands around the chipped mugs. Talith touched the bay's old drone, tracing the weld lines with interest. You keep these working beyond their seasons, she said softly. That is its own kind of magic. Jonas smiled. More habit than magic. Machines want to live. Sometimes you just need to listen for the note they're trying to sing. Miren asked about the wall of sketches pinned above the bench, thin-line dreams of compact drives and stable fields. These look like bridges. That's how I see them, he said. Bridges through dark water. Once I had a team. We built a prototype that shaved weeks off a route. Then the contracts dried. And the partner I trusted sold the heart of it out from under me. After that, I drifted down deck and grew quiet. Silence settled with the soft weight of shared understanding. Talith set her mug down. You speak of children. Ivy's 10, Jonas said, and Corin is 8. They live on Eden Ridge with their mother. I talk to them when the relays line up, and my spare credits can carry a call. Sometimes I measure the distance by the stories I miss. Miren's eyes held a kindness that did not pity. You are still building, she said, even when no one sees. Some bridges are made of love stretched across time. The comm array blinked with a tentative green. The storm had unclenched its fist. Jonas opened a line, and Maren sent a tight band request to a service hub. The signal made it halfway before collapsing. She tried again, altering the path like a weaver rerouting thread. The hub answered, thin but present. A tow could arrive within the hour if they confirmed location and make. Talith read out coordinates. When she named their craft, Jonas understood what his eyes had already guessed. The pod was a class used by diplomatic houses from Draconian space. It did not belong in the lower ring's shadow lanes. His heartbeat ticked faster with a mix of caution and curiosity. He did not ask. There are doors we do not push when someone has trusted us with vulnerability. They gathered their cloaks. Jonas offered to escort them through the transit tubes, and they accepted with a quick, grateful glance at each other. As they reached the platform, the Umbra Veil's long tail glimmered outside the station's shield, turning light into a slow aurora. The pod sat on a dim berth, elegant even in stillness, its matte hull wearing the night like a tailored coat. A faint crest, stylized wings folded around a star, rested near the intake, subtle enough that only a practiced eye would notice. Jonas popped the access panel and checked the coupling cage. "See this scoring?" he said. "Your field regulator fought the surge. Brave little thing. The flux coupling sheared after. A good tow and a new piece, and you'll be flying by second shift." Maren leaned in, listening like a student hungry for every word. Talith held the light steady, and for a moment, the three formed a small circle of focus and trust amid the station's grand indifference. The tow crew pinged arrival and set clamps with professional care. While they worked, Maren dug in her satchel and pressed a thin crystal wafer into Jonas's palm. It warmed at his skin, pulsing faintly. "A direct line," she said. "If you ever need help, or even if you just wish a friendly ear, use this." Jonas blinked, surprised, then pocketed the gift without studying it. "I'm glad my door was open." Talith's smile was clear and young. "And we are glad you answered." The crew sealed the pod's belly and guided it toward the repair bay. Maren and Talith stood with Jonas at the edge of the platform, eyes on the path ahead as if the light itself might carry thanks. When they turned to leave, Talith paused. "You said machines want to live," she murmured. "I think kindness does too." Jonas watched them go, that sentence folding itself into his ribs. He returned to his shop and cleaned in a small whirlwind, as if tidying could anchor the afterglow of their visit. The station seemed quieter, like a room that had been sung in. Days slid by. He landed a contract debugging a miner's navigation stack, and for the first time in months, numbers in his ledger nudged upward instead of down. He ate simply, saved hungrily, and set a calendar marker for when he might risk a trip to Eden Ridge without choosing between the journey and rent. The crystal wafer stayed in his pocket, forgotten but warm when his hands sought comfort. On the morning that changed everything, the door chime sounded at 10:30, a polite tone that didn't match the usual clatter of the deck. Jonas wiped his hands and opened the seal. 3 figures waited. In front stood a draconian elder, robed in quiet power, his presence both gentle and vast, like the gravity of a small moon. On either side, Maren and Talith lifted their hands in greeting, their eyes bright with emotion that mirrored Jonas's sudden rush of anticipation and confusion. "Mr. Hale," the elder said, voice harmonized with age and patience, "I am Arkin Voriel. I believe you met my daughters on a difficult night." The air seemed to tilt. Daughters. The crest on the pod. The careful speech. Jonas's pulse thumped in his ears. "May we come in?" Arkin asked. Gratitude should be spoken where it was earned. Jonas stepped back, and the past few days rearranged themselves into a pattern he had not dared to imagine. The workshop felt smaller with Arkin Voriel inside, not because he occupied space with force, but because his presence gathered the room into attention. He took the offered stool without ceremony, folding long fingers around a steaming mug. Miren and Talith stood close, like a shoreline and its tide. "My daughters told me," Arkin began, "that on a night when metal sang and the grid refused to listen, a human opened a door and asked for nothing in return." His gaze met Jonas's, not heavy or appraising, simply steady. Door opening, I have learned, is a rare craft. Jonas's throat felt tight. "I only did what I hoped someone would do for my kids." Miren's eyes filled, a quiet shimmer she didn't bother to hide. "We knocked on 17 doors, she said. Yours was the first that noticed our shaking and not our horns." Talith added, voice low, "Your blanket smelled like machine oil and cinnamon, and I slept without fear for the first time in weeks." Arkin set the mug aside and activated a small projector. The bay filled with clean lines of a ship not yet born, field generators arranged like nested shells, pathways for energy flowing not as brute force, but as guided river. "My houses build stations, bridges, and schools," he said. "We measure reach not by what we own, but by how many can cross. I asked to see the work you did before life turned. Your notation sings. Your field symmetry is elegant and merciful, which is rarer than it should be." Jonas stared. It was his old work, yes, but illuminated by someone who had read it with care. Merciful? "There are engines that conquer distance," Arkin said, "and there are engines that carry families without tearing them. The second kind is harder." Miren leaned forward. "Father is planning a network across the colonies to shorten travel time for ordinary workers. Fewer missed birthdays, fewer goodbyes that taste like iron." Talith's fingers twisted together, then relaxed. "We spoke out of turn that night," she said, almost smiling. "We told him about you before we told him our route." Arkin inclined his head. "I have an offer, Jonas Hale. Not to buy your gratitude, not to cancel the debt of kindness, but to place you where your craft and character can do the most good. Chief designer for an expansion we call the Hearthline. Headquarters near Eden Ridge. Compensation suitable for a life with breathing room and a commute measured by footsteps, not star charts." The words fell like sunlight through an open shutter. Jonas reached for the bench to steady himself. The eviction notice on the pegboard seemed small and far away. He thought of Ivy's gap-toothed grin and Corin's habit of taking apart toys to see their hearts. He also thought of the ache of pride, the fear of accepting help, the bruise left by betrayal. "Why me?" he asked, the question honest, not false modesty. "Because you are precisely good at the thing we need most." Arkin said, "We can hire many who know the math. Fewer know how to tune an engine to carry love without shaking it apart." Miren laughed softly. "He means you make bridges, not just speed." Talith added, "And you made a bridge for us, across suspicion and storm." Jonas let out a breath he didn't realize he'd trapped. "There must be terms," he said. "Some net I cannot see." "Only one," Arkin replied. "Keep your door open. In our offices, in your life, we will pay you fairly. Train a cohort in your methods, and build a scholarship circle for dependents of the workers who keep our worlds running. Your children will have access to schools that respect curiosity. You will have time, and time is the rarest currency." Jonas closed his eyes for a heartbeat, and the station's hum filled the pause. His mind leapt to the practical. Permits, relocation, proof to a court that a father could be present. Under that, a deeper tremor. Hope, cautious but alive. I accept, he said, voice rough. Not as a trade for the night you spent here. That needs no price. I accept because this is the work I've been trying to do in my head since I first held my daughter in a delivery room and counted her fingers like bolts. Maren wiped her eyes openly now. Talith squeezed her sister's hand. Arkin stood and offered his palm in a human greeting he had learned well. Then let us begin. They spent the rest of the morning spread around the workbench. The projector lit their faces as they iterated a field path that reduced oscillation in low-budget routes. Jonas suggested a coil geometry that could be serviced by hands with little formal training. Arkin refined the placement with a mathematician's grace. Miren proposed a diagnostic melody embedded in the engine's hum so that a mechanic could hear problems a shift before failure. Talith diagrammed the community centers tied to stations on long routes, places where travelers could find warm meals and a quiet corner to call family. When at last they paused, the bay felt different, as if it had been blessed by work that served something larger. Arkin handed Jonas a slate with the first contract skeleton. Simple terms, fair protections, a clause that made Jonas's throat burn. Relocation assistance tailored to children's schedules. As they left, Talith turned in the doorway. You taught me last night that machines want to live. Today you taught me that plans can live too. Maren added, We will see you soon, Chief Designer. After they vanished into the corridor, Jonas pressed his palms to the cool bench and let a quiet laugh break free. The bay answered with a small approving creak, as if the old beams had been waiting for this moment and could finally settle into a new song. 6 months later, a window on Eden Ridge framed morning light and a schoolyard where Ivy and Corin chased a ball that changed colors when it laughed. Jonas's office sat high enough to see both the classroom roof and the shuttle lanes beyond, where ships eased into patterns like breaths. The Hearthline project board on his wall glowed with approved nodes, each a point of promise. The first engine from his team had gone live last week. Mothers held toddlers against the viewport and cried when travel time halved. A miner sent a message at shift change, made it to dinner for the first time in months. Jonas printed that line and pinned it above his desk, where fancy diplomas might have gone. The door chimed, and his new assistant peeked in. Lord Arkin is here, and Maren sent a note about tonight. Send him in, Jonas said, standing. When Arkin entered, the greeting was simple. Friends now, not ruler and tenant. They reviewed updates. Field stability held. Service manuals read like friendly cookbooks. And the training cohort had already adapted the coil geometry to local manufacturing quirks. Arkin shared a plan for a floating haven along the border routes where conflict displaced families. A station whose first purpose would be welcome. We'll fit it with classrooms and kitchens before the docking rings, Jonas said. We'll make the entry smell like bread. Arkin smiled, a small, satisfied curve. And music? Built into the hull, Jonas replied. A gentle chord that tells tired hearts they have reached a human place. After the meeting, Jonas crossed the plaza to the school. Ivy burst from the door with paint on her fingers and a story about a model river that eroded her teacher's desk. Corin held a kit drone in 3 pieces, eyes bright, already imagining a better assembly. They walked hand in hand to the tower canteen, where Miren and Talith waited at a corner table, no longer strangers, but aunties by choice. Talith had learned to play a street game with chalk and laughter. Miren kept a book of recipes and added a note after each meal. Who smiled first? What memory the taste unlocked? Over bowls of stew, the conversation flowed easily. They spoke of simple things: Ivy's science fair, Corin's plan to teach the drone to fetch socks, a neighbor's cat that had decided Jonas's balcony was sovereign land. Underneath, a quiet gratitude thrummed. Storms end, doors open, families knit. After dinner, they visited the construction site where the refugee station's core took shape. Scaffolds moated the air like scaffolds everywhere, but the center ring already glowed with warm panels in colors set by community vote. A group of apprentices unrolled insulation that smelled faintly of citrus, laughing when a sheet tried to fly. Jonas walked the ring with Arkin, his boots echoing in the new space. "Do you remember?" Arkin asked. "The night metals sang and fear was fashionable?" "I do," Jonas said. "I remember how small kindness felt in the face of that noise. It still won." Arkin's nod held the weight of memory. Kindness is a quiet engine with endless range. They reached the doorway that would become the main entrance. There, Jonas paused and drew a chalk line at eye level. "This is our promise height," he said. "If a traveler stands here and thinks, 'I need help,' the answer will always be yes." Later, alone in his office, Jonas drafted a note to his team. He kept it short, simple, and true, then pinned it to the internal board where memos about budgets usually napped. "If anyone knocks, anyone at all, our door opens. Fix what is broken. Feed who is hungry. Listen as if the universe depends on it. Because sometimes it does." As evening bruised into gentle purple, Miren pinged him. A family dinner at Arkin's home, with bread that broke perfectly and stories that mended old aches. Jonas replied that he and the children would be there early to help set the table. "Family is something we make," he added, smiling at the familiar truth. Before he left, he walked to the window and looked out at the shuttle lanes that now moved with a calmer rhythm. Somewhere, a worker was counting minutes saved and turning them into a bedtime story. Somewhere, two fears hiss or hope's invitation. Jonas turned off the lights and stepped into the corridor. The tower hummed like a living thing. He took the lift down to the street, where Ivy had chalked a crooked star and written beneath it in careful letters, "This is a good place." He stood over the drawing and felt tears prick, not of sorrow, but of the kind of joy that arrives when the long road finally shows you home. On the walk to Arkin's home, he passed a notice board. Pinned among advertisements for tutoring and music lessons was a small, hand-drawn sign. "Free repairs for anyone stranded by the border storms. Look for the blue door." He laughed softly and took a picture, because he knew the person who had painted their door that color. He had helped them pick the shade. That night, as bread cracked and laughter rose, Jonas thought about engines the way he always had, bridges across distance. But now he understood the better truth. Sometimes the strongest bridge is a welcome offered at the right moment. Sometimes the map's most important line is a doorway. Sometimes the best designs run not on fuel, but on the quiet, renewable power of compassion. The next morning, when the intercom buzzed for the 3 o'clock planning meeting, Jonas answered with a new standing instruction to reception. "If anyone arrives needing help, guide them in before you ask their name." Then he added a line in his project charter, a line no investor had requested, but every traveler would feel. "This place is for people." And somewhere, far along a route that used to take too long, a child looked out a viewport and said, "That station looks like it's smiling." The parent nodded, not because the shape proved it, but because a beam of welcome had crossed the darkness and found them. That was the true engine Jonas Hale had helped design. An engine that carried love with a steady hand, through weather and worry, all the way home.